Everybody. It's 12 noon, time to get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are on the planet. My name is Susan Harrell. I'm the Director of Sales Enablement, and it's my pleasure and privilege to produce this webinar series for you on a monthly basis. Today we have a really great topic, Beyond ChatGPT, a practical AI toolkit for L&D, with Neovation's founder and CEO, Dan Belhassen, as our presenter. So with no further ado, I will turn it over to Dan.
Right on, Susan. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. So we're going to take a tour through some common L&D tasks and see how we can apply AI to each of the steps. All right. So I'm Dan Belhassen, as Susan already mentioned and introduced me. So it's a real pleasure to present for you today. So our company, Neovation, what we do is we help apply AI and learning technologies to help employees work smarter and learn faster. We provide both custom course design services as well as various software products in order to help do that. So from a custom course design point of view, we create courses in Captivate, Storyline, Rise, whatever it is that people want. Great high quality courses that really engage learners. And we have three different software products. We have SmarterU, which is our enterprise LMS, and I see many of our SmarterU clients are here. We have AutoLearn, which is our gamified micro-learning platform, which sends quick 2-minute retention training sessions to people on a daily basis. And we have Joy Suite, our new platform, which we'll be looking at just a very quick look at it later on. And this is a platform that is designed to take all these AI capabilities, a lot of the ones you're going to see today, and make them easy to deploy within your organization. All right, AI, how can it support your life cycle? You know, one of the things that I think there's so much emotion tied up with AI because it promises, it has tons of capabilities, and we're going to see a lot of them today that maybe some of them hopefully are going to be ones that you had no idea that you could do. So knowledge workers are the ones that are most impacted by AI job-wise, and their current jobs are going to be disrupted by AI. If you and your job is moving content from here to here or transforming content in a predictable way from here to here or something like that, your job is going to be disrupted. It may happen 3 years from now, it may happen a year from now, but it's going to happen. So part of what we're really trying to do as a company, as we work with our clients and in this webinar, is to help arm you with a vision of the future so that you can be a director of AI versus somebody who may get displaced by somebody else who is a director of AI. So that's really important. There's a big disruption coming. We're all going to be impacted by it. But if you're able to use these technologies and being proficient with it, then my hope is that you will get an even better position in a post-AI world. While we are, as a company, obviously doing a lot of work with AI, I would say that I personally am one half sort of exhilarated by what this technology can do. It's amazing. And on the other half, I'm completely daunted by how fast it's growing, how capable it's getting, okay? So just wanted to put that out there. So there's lots of different tools and options. We are only going to explore a very small handful of technologies and really only a few different tools, but there's hundreds and hundreds of ones out there. But what I'm going to try to do is focus on ones that are the ones that don't cost very much, that you can get and you can use within your company should you want to do some of these things. One thing I will say about AI is that the limitation is our own imagination. I'm probably going to show you stuff that you've never tried to do because you just never thought of trying to do it. So even for myself, limitation is my imagination. Every week, I realize that some AI tool can do much more for me than I thought possible because I just never thought to ask. So in general, what I recommend to people to do is when you're talking about AI, when you're thinking about how to work with AI, you got to treat it kind of like a superhuman intern. Maybe it doesn't have a whole lot of like real world experience, but is really, really capable. And so if you can just ask it for something that, even if you don't think it's possible, it often can be actually quite helpful and can help you sort of push your limit of imagination a bit further as to what AI can do for you. All right, so that's our goal for today, right? We want to be really imaginative and explore. So we're going to see some different tools. One of the things is some of the tools that we're going to be using are technically still in beta. So something may go wrong. And that is an interesting area about AI tools because they've all been released within the last few years. So really, in a lot of ways, they're all still in beta. So when you're using AI tools, I recommend a pretty good dose of patience because sometimes things don't work as expected. And because AI tools are non-deterministic, that means that asking something in a particular way today and then asking the exact same thing in an hour, you may get a different result. Now, usually it's a slightly different result, and that's okay. But that's also part of the power of AI tools, is that you're not always getting the same outcome. So that means that AI tools can be, and some people don't like the term being applied, but can be creative. And that's something we're going to leverage today is the creativity of AI. Now, some of you are thinking to yourself, oh, this isn't really AI, this is large language model. Okay, I'm just going to call it AI just to be simple because I don't want to say large language model or LLM, all the time. But that's technically what these things are, and it's generative AI, etc. Okay, let's get going. So we're going to look at how we can accelerate content development, create some media, do some interactivities, which is really cool, do some topics around compliance and other types of engagement. And then we're going to do a special Mission Impossible at the end, okay? Hopefully something that we all never thought to even try doing, we're going to do and see how well that works. So we need a topic. So I picked a topic that I thought was pretty universal for pretty much every organization. It's one of the things new supervisors always struggle with. So probably everybody's had to produce a module on this topic, which is giving effective feedback. So we're going to use that as a thread, but of course it could be any type of topic that you want. Like honestly, you could have nuclear engineering as a topic, and everything I'm going to show you would work as easily. The AI does not care whether the topic is nuclear fission or giving effective feedback. It is as easy for it to communicate in both. All right. So let's take a look at a few things. Now I'm going to switch over and do a whole bunch of demos live. Okay. So first thing I want to do is talk about a couple of prompting things that I think are really important, just kind of general best practices. Okay. So we're going to use Claude here. There's a bunch of different tools. We're going to use a little bit of Gemini later on for some things as well. But each different LLM has different pros and cons. So for instance, Claude is really good at interpreting instructions and really good at generating code. So we're going to use Claude for that. Gemini, however, is much better at, well, actually, it can create images, Claude can't. It can create video, Claude can't. It can create infographics, Claude can't. So we're going to use a combination of them. In an ideal world, you would be able to have access to 5 different tools, but you can't, right? Okay, well, that's actually why we're building our Joy Suite product, because it's going to take the best of all these LLMs, put them in one place. So first thing is, ask for the end result that you want. This is like, I'm just going to talk about a few sort of key prompting things, right? So let's say that I don't know, like I could have approached this if I want to look at course satisfaction survey results. I could have like taken all my results, put them in and said, generate me, analyze my course satisfaction. And I get something and it'd be pretty cool and be pretty meaningful. But if I start off asking the question first about what is possible, then I'm going to get a whole bunch of different things that maybe some of these things I've never even thought about would be relevant, right? So for instance, I should also not just give it the survey results, but I should give it like the transcript from the session or the course material or something else, because then it can provide me with better insights, right? But probably we've all just been putting in our surveys, the people that have done this, right? Never thought to put in course content or a recording of the session. But that is one of the things that can be surfaced when you ask the AI how it can help you get to a particular end result. So I always recommend approaching that. Something else that I would say is that um, there's such a thing called LLM optimization. Okay, so if you ask the AI to do a job for you, it's trying to optimize the amount of effort. So if you ask it to write um, a full 60-minute e-learning module, you're going to end up with something pretty thin because that's a ton of content, right? But if you ask it to write one lesson, you're going to have a richly detailed one lesson. So what you want to do is you want to chunk your requests for any large jobs. So let's do an example here that we want to do we want to ultimately build a 60-minute course on effective communication. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, give me an outline for that, right? So Claude is going to go through and generate an outline. And it's going to do a very detailed job of that because it's a relatively small job. Now, again, if I asked it for an outline for a 20-hour course, it would not be as detailed as this because the LLM is trying to optimize its effort over the entire request, right? So it changes the level of depth based on the size of the request. And that's a very important thing for you to keep in mind when you're thinking about how to talk to the AI and how to give it tasks. Okay, so here is a 60-minute course outline. So it's broken it down by time, right? Pretty good, right? Now, every step along the way, the human needs to be in charge, okay? Like the AI is going to do 80 or 90% of the work for you, but the 10 to 20% that's left is very important to pay attention to. There's been so many, hallucinations are not nearly the problem that they used to be, but it's still a problem. And it's something that the humans are responsible for, right? To make sure that they fact check. One of the ways to do that is use another session of the AI to do the fact checking on something you got out of the first one and request citations if you didn't get them. Obviously, this is very general content here, but if we were like, I don't know, trying to do a legal brief, for instance, and needed to cite other cases, we'd want to make sure our citations are solid. Okay, right, so here's our outline, and it's a 60-minute course. Okay, so that's pretty basic. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to now do something which I think is really powerful, which is we want to ask for recommendation only. Okay, so I've got the 60-minute course here. Now I'm like, hey, I wonder what would a version of it for executives look like? If I just ask it that without this text, then it is just going to change that content to now be the executive content because that's what it thinks it wants to do. It wants to be very helpful, but I don't want it to do that. I just want it to consider what the executive version would be. So I'm going to ask for that as a recommendation. And this is something that is also an area that I find people run into and sometimes are frustrated by. It's like, the AI didn't do what I wanted it to do. And it's like, well, it guessed what you wanted to do, and then it did it for you. So it like literally did it. It just wasn't what you had in mind. So if you're talking to it and asking for things, and you don't want it to change until you validate. So in this case here, maybe I want it to be in 10-minute max. So make it 2 5-minute modules. Spelling doesn't really matter. And again, asking for recommendations only, because otherwise it will happily start changing my output, which I may not want. Okay, so LLMs, AI is very good at refactoring, extremely good at content. You remember, these models are trained on like the world's information, right? There is no human that has this much information in their brain, which is why the LLM is able to do so much of this stuff at a very high quality. Okay, so sometimes what you're doing is you're working on a instruction that you want to save and then apply to different jobs over time, right? So maybe you're doing some type of transformation. Like let's say you're interviewing subject matter experts, and your subject matter experts, you've got every week you've got different interviews. So you want to save out a build an instruction set, and then you want to apply it in the future. So what you would do is you would first do something like this. Let's see here. What would a prompt be to generate a let me do something a bit different here. Okay, I'm going to do a different example. I'm going to do the SME example here. So help me generate instructions to turn SME interview notes. So right, this is like a transcript from an SME interview. So it's going to have all sorts of stuff in it, ums and ahs and all sorts of stuff. And I might want to transform them in a very consistent way because maybe there's a format I want to use. Maybe I want to pull out some things. And then also I want to maybe give it instructions for how much the AI should add to the content or not, or whether it should just mark areas that perhaps need some additional content, right? Really depends on what you're going to do with the SME interview notes. But the main thing here is I'm asking it to generate me the instructions to turn the notes into a document, okay? So it's doing that, right? Like it's generating instructions for that, right? And that's going to be finished. And then it's going to open up in the panel right away. Okay, great. I've got these instructions. All right. So I'm going to paste them into another Claude here. And I'm going to copy my interview notes here with the SME, oops, into here. And I'm going to say go. All right. Something's not going to work here. And I'll explain why in a moment. And then I'll explain how to fix it. All right, so I've got my interview notes here. I've got my instructions here, right? And again, this is something I want to do on a repeated way. Okay. And there you go. So it's processing the interview notes. And, you know, like if we look at the instructions that it generated, right? The instructions were to create a gap in program log, which is really cool, which is good and useful, right? Because I want to, you know, I want this to be sort of a true, representation of the SME interview and the content we got from the interview. Oh yeah, this is actually coming out pretty good. The previous version I did was not actually quite so detailed, and I had to get it to do another pass at it. We have our follow-up questions here that the AI is suggesting. So that's all good. So now if I wanted to make changes to the instructions, so let's say that I spotted something here and I wanted to change it, then I'd go back to my first tab and I'd say modify the instructions to blah, 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 whatever it is that I wanted to change. So this is a two-screen solution. So on the first screen, you're refining the instructions, right? And on the second screen, you are going to be now applying those instructions and testing them. And that's a very powerful pattern using two different windows to be able to do that. Okay, now let's go and do some more examples here. I'm going to start a new chat here. And I'm going to say, I want a 15-minute module on giving effective feedback. Again, I'm going to ask for the prompt first. And then, so this allows me to modify it so I can look at some changes that I might want to make to it. In the interest of time, I'm not going to make any changes here. I'm going to say proceed so that it can actually generate it. Now, what I like, it's very important. Again, there's several spots that the humans add a lot of value to the process and add a lot of efficiency to the process. So when you get those first set of instructions for it, you know, that's what it's going to work on, right? So at that point, like review it, right? Make modifications. So I could have said, for instance, that I wanted it to be focused on food packaging, manufacturing, or something else, right? A very small change, but it's a lot easier to make that change first when you're looking at the prompt than it is later on when you've developed the content, right? But this is the content that we're actually going to use for all of our examples because the 60-minute content will be too long. So we'll let this finish building. And while that's happening, I'm just going to clear my other Claude session here because we're going to use that in a second. All right. Just let that finish. You know, the funny thing is about LLM generations is like this is doing, I don't know, like an entire day of work in like 2 minutes. But it's funny how 2 minutes seems so long now in this world. We're using AI tools, and you know, it's all so relative, and it's really interesting what you get used to in terms of like what is a good response time. All right, great. I've got my 15-minute course here. Awesome. So this is my raw course content. Maybe I've gotten it from SME interviews, I validated it, etc. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a storyboard for it, right? So we're going to create a slide-by-slide storyboard because I'm going to ultimately hand it over to an e-learning designer in order to build it in Storyline or Captivate or whatever my favorite e-learning tool is. So you can see that happening already. So let's just not wait for the whole output here. Okay, so it's gonna, I mean, it'll look better once it's actually rendered. So it gives you a bit of a color scheme, doesn't really matter at this point. But if you have your company branding document, um, then you could just include that as part of the process, right? And it'll actually generate with that in mind. And if you have a company logo and other stuff, and you don't have a company branding document, you can go into a tool like Claude and actually upload your logo and say, generate me a branding document based on this logo, or that would align to this logo. Or you can point it at your company website and URL and ask it to check your company website and generate a branding document if you don't have one. So there's lots of ways that you can do that, right? In a previous world, we're used to doing 80% of the work ourselves and having that previous work, like last year, and having AI do 20% of it. But 2026 is the year that switches, where AI starts doing 80% of the work and we start doing 20% of the work. All right, so it's still generating some content here, right? Really good, looks like really rich content. Again, it's a bit hard to see in this temporary output. Uh, but it's getting there. It's almost to the end, which is great. Good.
So, Dan, you have a question about privacy and corporate information into an AI platform. Concerns about that?
Yeah, great question, Derek. So here's how it basically works: is if you pay for the AI, then generally your information is fully private. If you don't pay for it, so you're using like the free version of ChatGPT or something, generally they will train on your information. That's generally the bargain. That's definitely the case with ChatGPT, and I think it probably applies to all of them. But this is read the terms and services kind of thing, or your IT people are generally. But that's generally how it works. So definitely tools like Claude. One of the reasons that I use Claude for this sort of thing is a lot of companies use it because it's designed for company use. It's not designed for consumer use like ChatGPT is. So like ChatGPT is getting ads right away. Claude is not getting ads and that sort of thing. So, all right, let's see if there's another question here. And creating specific agents that train on just specific subject matter materials and feed it to you rather than creating content from the entire body of knowledge. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. So one of them is a tool called Notebook LM. And so Notebook LM is a tool which what it allows you to do is it allows you to basically upload specific sources And then you can ask questions about those specific sources. Like if you absolutely want to make sure that everything that you have is from these sources, then that's a really good tool for you to use. And it's one that we use as well. So it's a Google tool. There's a free version of it, so everybody can use it. And then there's also the pro version that if you're using Google Workspace, you probably have access to already. So really good tool for absolutely citing. Now, if you're not using those tools, if you're using Gemini, Gemini has a thing called Gemini Gems. And basically what a gem is, it's called a project, a Joy Suite, is the ability to sort of create a container that has certain content. And then when you open a chat within the context of that gem or the project, then it will give you answers based on that content. The difference is that it's not 100% bound to it like Notebook is. So it depends on the level of isolation that you need. All right, so this is still generating here. I should have asked it for a smaller amount, maybe a 5-minute module, the timing point of view. Okay, should be done right away. So one of the things that you'll find is that, like, they cannot build data centers fast enough for people using AI. And at certain peak times of the day, it does get slower. So in terms of Notebook LM, if you're asking a factual question, the question was, what happens if it's not in the source material? Then it will say it does not know, or that is not in the source material, because it's really, really bound to the source material. Now, every LLM has within its brain, like basically all the knowledge on the internet, okay? So it's really hard for an LLM to not know things, but Notebook LM is designed for that. So it'll really specifically try to guide you as to what's there and what's not. All right, here's our detailed storyboard. Okay, so very detailed. So we've got some color stuff. We've got all the different slides that it's recommending what to do, right? Like this can be handed over to an e-learning designer for them to be able to build the course, okay? So we're gonna come back to this, but what I want to do is just show you that, and now we're not going to wait for it, but I could say something like this, generate a PowerPoint deck. I could say that. Now that's going to take 5 minutes. We don't got 5 minutes. So I'm just going to stop it, but I did create it before the session, and this is what it created. So it created a PowerPoint deck based on this material. Okay, the branding may not be right and other things, but these are all things that you can just ask to change, right? Like you can give it your branding file and ask it to generate, different branding, right? Like none of these things are obstacles. Certainly not when you start using these tools. You can do all these things easily, right? Okay, so I stopped that and I can say, generate a 5-question quiz. Another piece of content, right? Who enjoys developing the distractors, the incorrect answers on quiz questions, right? That's terrible to create plausible distractors. But AI doesn't care, right? It's as easy for it to do that as to generate real answers. So generating a quiz is hopefully something that we're all doing right now because it is so ridiculously good at it. Now, along with that quiz, I could say, generate that in a spreadsheet, right? I could say that. Obviously, it's done now pretty much, right? So if I wanted to have it as a spreadsheet, I can generate it in a spreadsheet. I can say that I want one. I can import into Storyline or whatever your favorite e-learning authoring tool are. Generally they can all import quiz questions, and so you can do that and request that, and it'll generate the spreadsheet. Okay, so we're going to come back to this. There's lots of different examples still to come. All right, let's look at something else now, which is media generation, right? It's another thing that's traditionally very difficult. So one of the things that we can do, and I'm going to have to change my prompts to be a little more concise here. I'm going to say, generate me a separate set of media requirements, including the following. But I'm going to say only one of each. Okay, guys, I don't need a ton because we're not going to have time for it. But I'm going to show you some really cool things that you can do with media. Okay, so the first thing is it's going through and it's generating the media, right? So it knows the content, it has the content. Now it's looking at it and it's figuring out what would be useful media. So a bar chart to show you how feedback effectiveness decreases over time. Okay, cool. What's this other one? They can do, what is this now? Feedback effectiveness by timing. Oh, that's still the same one. Okay, an image here. All right, cool. An infographic. Excellent. All stuff that we want to be able to show. Okay, and it's working on the last thing, which is a scenario. So let's see if we can look at these examples. All right, let's see if there's any other questions that I've missed in the meantime. It should be done generating right away because we had a pretty small request. Okay, cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say generate the chart example. But I'm going to cheat because I'm going to run these in parallel. And I'm just going to run another plot and say generate the image example, and I pasted in this guidance. Now, it's not the same thing as if I pasted in all of the content guidance, but like it's going to be pretty close. Okay, so I'm going to start this one off. So now it is like reading here, going to generate the, oh, sorry, you know what? Let's see what it's going to do. I don't know if Claude can actually generate images. We're going to use Gemini for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and, oh, our timing chart is here. So here's our timing chart. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now, it's also trying to be helpful and knows that it thinks that I'm using a storyline. So it is going to create another version that it thinks it's going to be easier for me to put into storyline. So that's pretty helpful that it can do that. Oh, it's trying to create the image. LLM's really trying to get the job done. Okay, so here's a different one that's as an image. It gave it to me in two different formats that I thought would be useful. Now, I'm going to go back to one of the previous ones here because I actually don't want the image one. I want the feedback timing chart. That's code, which is this one. Okay, so modify the timing chart code to show a selector for how I don't know, effectiveness relates to time. Okay, so I'm going to ask it to make a change. So this is code, right? Not a lot of code, but it's code. That means that you can import it into an e-learning module as like a web object or something like that. So while that's going on, so it's really trying to do this, and it's going to do it the hard way. So I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to do it in Gemini instead. So what I need to do is come back here. I'm going to open up my document, which has all of my media suggestions, media requirements, and I'm going to find my infographic description. Oh, here's my timing selector. Okay, so now I get a really nice interactive thing. I can pick the time period and I can see what the effectiveness is, right? And then you can make additional tweaks that you want to that, okay? If we had more time, I'd be able to show you more stuff, but we do not. So lots of options though to create cool interactivities. You're not limited to having to like find a developer to build it up for you in Storyline. Okay, let's look at our media requirements here. And let's look at the the infographic. So one of the really nice things that you can do is you could actually take screenshots of things. So if I wanted to, that one's a bit too long, but let's say that I wanted to take this chart and I wanted to create it. What I could have done in Claude is take this copy it, paste it, and say, something like this, generate this. And then it'll be able to do that. So you don't have to copy and paste. Everything doesn't have to be text. Claude and most LLMs understand images as well. So what we are going to do, though, is we're going to generate an image. So we're going to take all of this stuff here, and we are going to put all of that into Gemini, and we're going to say to generate an image based on that description. And then that's going to take a second to do, to be able to create that. Now, while that's happening, in the interest of time, I'm going to show, here's the image. Oh, that was pretty fast, which is great. Okay. And again, you can make changes to it. That's not, obviously, I didn't tell it was food manufacturing. If I did, it would be more of a different type of factory setting, right? So it all depends on the instructions that you give it. But these are all superpowers. These are all things that we've never been able to do. We'd have to, I don't know, spend 10 minutes looking through stock photography, right? So we can change it to be something different. So I can say change to be a food process, food packaging line instead. I know that we have a couple people that worked for a very good Winnipeg food packaging company. So we'll use that example. All right. All right. Okay. I did change the actual robots. It changed the line. So this is actually another good skill for you to consider. So at this point, what I could do is I could keep asking it to make changes, but it has this sort of general image in mind. And I would have to keep kind of asking it to change different things. But what you want to do is you want to just start a new chat, and you could say that this is going to be something right off the bat in a new chat will generally get you a better result from transforming an image, right? But you have two options. You can start a new chat and you can start from the beginning, or you can modify an existing chat. Okay, there we go. Maybe not quite food packaging. I mean, it could be packaged food or whatever, but you get the idea. I mean, it's a superpower, right? You can do whatever you want with it. All right. In terms of the infographic, just in the interest of time, here's an infographic that I created based on the course, right? So this is like a nice little sort of, comic strip version infographic of, this type of process, right? About giving feedback. Okay, so you can easily create this. This was created with Gemini, right? It's very easy. You could create it in all sorts of different looks and feels and styles and everything. That's all sort of up to you. All right, let's get going here. So next thing we're going to look at is narration. Okay, so you've got a company called 11 Labs. So what 11 Labs is probably one of the world's best tools in order to do text to speech. So you can go to it, 11labs.io, test it for yourself, where you can do text to speech. But you can also do, so text to speech is basically you just give it a text. It's got all sorts of different voices, 10,000 different voices, a whole bunch of different languages, right? You can pick exactly the voice and the language you want for the content. So it does a very good job with that. It also does a very good job of voice cloning, where you can clone your voice. So if you're the one providing narration for your e-learning modules, right, you can clone your voice, and then you can just generate your narration, which is really nice and saves you a lot of time from having to re-record your voice and edit and cut and do all that kind of stuff with it, right, yourself. So it's really, really quite handy to be able to do that. The next thing is we're going to spend a couple minutes on video. So there's a whole bunch of different tools. Like one thing is this site here, Sora, is just a great example of what's possible in terms of video generation. All of these are AI generated video. That's somebody generated, okay? Like anything you can possibly imagine, it's here. But to give you an idea as to what's possible, so we're going to have complete feature-length films that are AI generated before you know it. So Google Gemini has the ability to generate an image. You can just ask it to generate an image, to generate a video, and it's going to do that, right? It'll take a couple minutes, and it's limited to about 8 seconds right now, but it's definitely possible. So let's actually look at examples. So this one I had pre-generated, and sadly I don't think the sound is going to come through on it. But this was a video that I generated based on the course content. Okay, it's the supervisor providing feedback. So that's the kind of quality that you can have. Limited to 8 seconds right now, but that's only a now limitation, right? Very soon we're not going to have that limitation. You're going to be able to create a 30-second, item or what have you. Okay. There's all sorts of different things that you can do in terms of creating interactions, right? You can create all sorts of different interactions as well. So we're not going to have time for a lot of them right now, but let's just put this one in here. And in here, let's do a different one. Get rid of this. Just run these in parallel. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a different type of interaction. So you saw some of the stuff like the interactivity in terms of the chart, giving effective feedback. Well, you can do the same thing for games as well, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple different games, a flashcard game and a multi-turn branching scenario. Again, you can put these into Storyline or other tools as web imports. So that's really quite useful. So let's take a look at other questions just for the second while it takes here. Yeah, Sally, those are completely generated people. So I could say, make the supervisor younger, taller, shorter, browner, whatever it is that you want, right? And it's going to completely generate it as well and be able to change. Now, one of the problems with AI generated video right now is sometimes it's not exactly consistent. So if you ask a change, like if what you're thinking is you can stitch all these 8-second bits together and it'll be like one continuous story, it's actually hard to do that right now because you might get a slightly different person in the next video. But it's something that they're working on, and very soon you're going to be able to create a multi-minute items. So all the images that are generated, all the media that are generated are royalty free, right? Because they are generated images. Now, half of these people are being sued by copyright holders. It's not, something you need to directly concern yourself with, but there's questions because they've all been trained on images that weren't necessarily copyright. So there's a bit of a moral question and from that point of view, but technically, legally, they are royalty free. Okay, here's our flashcard deck, right? So I can change it, I can interact with it, right? And again, I can modify it, I can make it do anything that I want, right? That's there. Let's check on our other one here. Okay, so our branching scenario game is a bit more complicated. It's taking a little bit more time. But if I wanted to have a drag and drop game, different types of scenarios, other types of things, I'd be able to build those as easily. Now, while that's going on, I'm going to switch gears for a bit here, and I'm going to do something else which is tough to do, an accessibility review, right? Now, you could export out your e-learning module as for web, and then once it's for web and it's hosted somewhere that Claude can access it, then it can do an accessibility review. So I was just going to do an accessibility review on the Claude.ai website and see what it has to say. So right away, it understands that WCAG AA is the target that you want to shoot for, which is the target that most of us shoot for in terms of accessibility, right? And it's going in and looking at all the details and all the best practices on the page, right? Which is a lot of work. But it's able to do that extremely well. And then it's going to provide a step-by-step guide for exactly what you need to do. Now, Claude can't spider your entire e-learning site, like follow all the links and test every page and every permutation of a page yet. It can't do that, right? There are other tools that'll do that, but I think you're going to find that some of these tools are going to be able to spider websites pretty soon, in which case they'll be able to do an accessibility review or other things like that over an entire website very soon. All right, let's see how our game is. Oh, look at this. What is this? This is not what I expected at all, which is kind of brilliant. All right, so interactive branching scenario game. Except this is just an image of the game. Interesting. So it created an image. Let me actually bring up the game. So here's the game. And I can go through and I can branch and walk through. So it's a bit of a choose your own adventure type game, right? So that's cool. And I guess it generated the image as like a helpful asset, you know? Oh, okay, because I had it as part of the earlier instructions. So I thought it'd be helpful and include that image as well. Okay, cool. All right, so we're getting near the end. Something that I wanted to show very quickly is go back here. So we looked at, so accessibility reviews, we looked at, one of the things that we struggle with is providing our learners with answers on demand. So like post a course. And that's one of the things that we're doing with our Joy Suite product. You know, you can go over to joysuite.com. Please have a look around, see if it's interesting to you. If it is, join our waiting list. And then you'll get notified about it. But it's designed in order to help you do all these things that we're talking about, but within the context of your company. So in Joy, you would gather up all of your different sources of truth. This is test data here. And then you'd be able to do different things. And I'll just show you some pre-baked examples here. So one of the things that you can do is you can allow your people to ask questions of the content. So just by having the source material in our knowledge center here, or link to it, then learners would be able to ask questions of the content, if the content was in SCORM or if the content was in other forms, and be able to get answers, which is really great. They'll also be able to do things like, you'll be able to do things like this, which is, you know, one of the things with LMSs is generally they're not really known for awesome reporting and analytics, but because it ties in with your LMS, whether it's SmarterU or Docebo or LearnUpon, any different LMS, and it allows you to actually interact with it. So you can ask questions of the content here, you can get charts and graphs, you can click on them and drill down into one of these areas. And then what's really cool is you can ask follow-up questions. So, you know, give me a course level breakdown. So here's that same information, and then you'll be able to drill down across those just really easily. And then what you could do is you can, if you've got, imagine your LMS connected and also your support system connected, then you could say something like, examine our recent support tickets, recommend training based on the tickets employees are having a hard time closing. So it's going to look at your support system. It's going to look at the courses available in your LMS, right? And then it's going to provide recommendations, right, for who should take what training, which is, wow, that's a superpower in the L&D world, right? To be able to use real-time data. Now you can feed that back to the support manager, and L&D you know, is always having a challenge, I think, proving like ROI and proving feedback. So these are all things that you can do. The other thing you can do, which we don't have time to show you for, is you can assign training, assign AI-based training, right? So with these things here, you have to import them into Storyline and then assign them with your LMS. But with Joy Suite, you'll be able to actually build an AI experience like this, and then just assign to people there, and it'll go through your LMS. Anyways, lots of different options for what you can do there. But this is an area that we're spending a lot of time on trying to figure out how do we make all of this really easy for people to do within their own companies. Okay, now for the grand finale, and then we'll just have a few minutes for questions. Okay, so the grand finale is this, and I saw somebody ask this in chat earlier, is, okay, this is all pretty cool, but could you create a full e-learning module from it? So let's do that, right? Let's say create an e-learning module, which is a SCORM 1.2 compatible module that you can import into any LMS. All right, so it's thinking about it, and it's like, sure, I'll do that for you. Okay, this is probably going to take about 10 minutes. But no surprise, I have done it already. So let's try. So I'm using a tool called Swarm Cloud, which is basically, that's how L&D validates e-learning modules, okay, that are out there. And I'm going to pick my e-learning module that was previously created here just in Claude, and I'm going to import it. So Swarm Cloud imports it, and then it does a validation to make sure that it's actually going to run and work properly. So boom, there we go, success. So I created a Swarm 1.2 module just by asking for it, right? Great, everything's there, no warnings. Okay, so let me launch it now. Here is my module. Okay. Now, again, I didn't give it any other instructions. I literally said, create an e-learning module. So it doesn't have my branding. It doesn't know about images and video yet. I can add those in just by asking them to be added in. And I'll just walk through it because I want to show you some of the interactivity that it baked in. So lots of different information pages. Here's some interactivity, right, that I can go through, etc. Right? I can do this dragging exercise. I've got it unlocked so I can go through all of it. I could have added it. I could have added narration to this. I could have changed the style of it and the interactions. All of that is stuff that I could have changed, right? So I can do through this little step-by-step scenario tool here. I can do a quiz at the end of it. I'm just going to skip the quiz, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is like testing, so I haven't made it the quiz even a pass-fail quiz. I would need to ask for that. But I want to show you this, which is it actually recorded back to the LMS. So it is a fully functioning Swarm 1.2 module. I could have done it as a Swarm 2004. I could have done it as XAPI, right? So there you go. I think that this is going to be how we're going to be building a lot of e-learning modules in the future. Now, this gives you the ability to create a lot of simple ones, right? And you can come to us to build more complicated ones. What this is going to allow us to do is create modules even more cost effectively than we've been able to do in the past and give you more value for the dollar. And our Joy Suite application is here to give you the ability to do all these AI capabilities within the context of your work situation. You can share things better and assign things to each other, right? That's the whole point. And one final thing to keep in mind is we are in the early days of this technology. It is going to get so much better so quickly. So please, there's a tsunami coming towards you and your job. Get a surfboard, which is learning how to use AI, because you do not want that wave crashing over you. All right, for any of you people that know about tsunamis, that's not a great analogy, but it's one that I just want everyone to take to heart, is harnessing these tools. You want to, because otherwise you're going to find that your skills are not going to be in the same type of demand as they were 2 years ago, 2 years from now.